Everyman Podcast.
Yeah.
Episode 3. How you doing, Daryl Campbell, my brother?
Man, I'm doing good.
So where are you today? Where you at?
Right now, I'm in Indianapolis. I'm at the Combine. You know, I was going through some comm checks, some run throughs for the Indianapolis NFL Combine. I got the chance to destroy some high school kids to make sure that our cams had site checks. It was great. They did a nice little reel of it. I saw some kids get blasted in Phantom Cam. It was amazing.
That's always good when you can put high value technology to good use like that, right?
I know, man.
That's awesome. So this week we had a conversation with professional wrestler Nick Cutler, and this dude is he's incredible, awesome guy. It was a great conversation, and he's the definition of the everyman, wouldn't you say?
Oh man, I mean, keyword passion. You know, all about opportunities, which is what I think every man is out there looking for. So, yeah, I love this guy.
Yeah, it's awesome. So let's just jump right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, Nick Cutler. Joining us today on the Everyman Podcast is professional wrestler Nick Cutler. Nick has been performing all over the country since 2007 and has appeared in some of my favorite independent and major promotions, such as Global Force Wrestling, Full Impact Pro, Maryland Championship Wrestling, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and my personal favorite, Tommy Dreamer's House of Hardcore. Nick has gone toe-to-toe with some of the WWE's biggest and baddest brawlers on Monday Night Raw, Sheamus and Cesaro. Sit back and relax as we get ready to crack open a can of 100% pure audio whoop-ass. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the undeniable Nick Cutler. Nick, how you doing, my brother?
I am doing fantastic. I am hydrated, I am fed, and I feel great.
Can I be honest? I'm a little fired up after that intro.
Yeah, you built me up really, really, really well, and now I feel like I'm not going to live up to everybody's expectations.
Oh, no, man. I disagree, my friend. I disagree. So, like I said, joining us today, Nick Cutler, professional wrestler, personal trainer, family man, everyman. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what's going on.
Well, I live in a little city called Lake Station, Indiana, which is roughly 40 minutes outside of Chicago. I grew up about 35 minutes east of here in LaPorte, Indiana. And when I was 8 years old, I saw my first professional wrestling match. Not necessarily my first professional wrestling match. I remember the first episode of Monday Night Raw that I watched was what it was.
Do you remember what that was?
It was the Monday Night Raw right after the Buried Alive in Your House. So the main event was the British Bulldog and Shawn Michaels for the WWF Championship. And it was the beginning of the build-up to Sid and Shawn at Survivor Series. And I remember seeing it and thinking, this is really, really cool to watch. And then a few weeks later, I saw Bret Hart wrestle for the first time on Raw, because I obviously wasn't getting pay-per-views then. And that was when I actually decided that I wanted to be a professional wrestler. And, you know, ups and downs from the time I was 9 years old, obviously, until the time I started doing it. I saw my first live wrestling match in 2006. I remember the exact card. It was at the Hammond Civic Center. The show opened with Chris Benoit and Chavo Guerrero, and the main was Batista and Finlay for the World Heavyweight Championship. And I remember watching that show thinking, if I had any doubts in my mind before seeing this live, that this was what I wanted to do, all doubt was gone at that point. And I literally, the next day was when I started searching out ways to break into the business. I literally did not go to school the next day and stayed home and just researched ways that I could get started.
So where did that lead you to?
Well, funnily enough, one of my ex-girlfriends was dating a professional wrestler. So I reached out to her. I was like, look, I don't know if it would be weird for him to kind of help me get my foot in the door, but do you think that you could maybe talk to him? And so she did. And you might actually know who this guy is. I don't know if you follow deathmatch wrestling at all, but his name's Adam Bueller.
Mm-hmm.
Heard that name? Okay. He was the one who actually initially broke me into the business.
Really?
My ex-girlfriend introduced me to him. He was a little standoffish at first, understandably so, knowing who I was. But eventually became really good friends with him. He got me started off as a referee, kind of started showing me how to bump, the ins and outs, this and this and that and that. Eventually, I obviously knew in my mind I was going to need better training than someone who had never really done anything. No disrespect, Adam, even though I go to his face. But, so fast forward, I had started working a little bit, and I ended up on shows with Steve Botts, who is a Chicago standout. He trained at Windy City Pro Wrestling. He was running a school in Chicago. And so I started driving to Chicago twice a week in 2008, 2009, in that time frame to train over there with him. And then obviously other training opportunities along the way. I've done training with Ring of Honor. I've done training with Monster Factory. I've done training with Evolve. This is throughout the entire 11 years that I've been working. And I've developed a reputation where I don't want to toot my own horn, but toot
away, my friend.
I'm one of the best. I truly believe that I'm one of the best talents, not just in this area, but around when it comes to storytelling and my ability to connect with a crowd. You're not going to see me doing a bunch of flips. I'm kind of, you could compare me to an independent version of the Revival, but you're not going to find anybody else who could tell a better story than me. You're not going to find anybody else that could connect with the crowd better than me. And you're not going to find anybody else that makes an effort to actually connect with his fan base more than I do. Because I annoy people with how much I'm on my social media, but I really don't give a shit because it's their journey too. Everybody that supports me is on this road with me. This isn't just about me. This is about, hey, this person bought a t-shirt. This person bought a picture. This person asked for an autograph. These are people who want to see me succeed. So it's not just about me. It's about letting them know that they didn't waste that $20. They didn't waste that $5. They didn't waste that $11.99 or whatever to buy a House of Hardcore pay-per-view, whatever the case may be.
Right.
And I just don't want to let those people down. So.
Well, I can totally relate to that, with my band and my business, like you want to keep pushing to a certain extent for all the people that have put and invested their time and their money into you. And more importantly, their support. It's not just, that $20 is awesome. It means a lot, but the people that show up every show, every gig, that's what really counts. Daryl actually is, you guys are almost neighbors.
Well, right now I'm actually at the Indianapolis Combine, so like I'm super close. I should say.
Indianapolis Combine was right in Indy.
Yeah, in Indy. Yeah,
oh,
at the Lucas Oil Stadium.
I'll be. Oh yeah. That's where. No. I'm used to Baker's Fieldhouse is where I always go to when I'm in Indy with WWE. I'll be in Indy in June though, but not for wrestling though. I'm going to meet the fucking Green Power Ranger. So
I saw that.
Oh, nice.
Yes,
that's awesome.
I can't tell you how stoked I am. I'm actually really pissed at my kid right now because I gave him the choice of either taking him to Medieval Times or taking him to C2E2. And in my mind, I'm like, he's going to pick C2E2, and then I'm going to meet the Pink Power.
Yeah, and Punk is going to be there too, yeah.
Dude, that's crazy.
Anyway, I'm concerned with the Pink Power Ranger. And my damn kid picked Medieval Times, and I told my wife, I was like, I'm never going to forgive him for this. I was going to see and the Green Ranger off my bucket list in 2019, and now I can't. So
that's the last time he gets to pick.
Exactly. Like from now on, I'm making all of his decisions.
So is the Pink Power Ranger your favorite Power Ranger, or is it just?
No, the Green Power Ranger is my favorite Power Ranger, but the Pink Ranger was the Green Ranger's love. So obviously, she was my first love too. Pink Ranger was.
There you go.
Obviously,
yes.
A lot of people's, bro.
And it's funny because looking back at it now, like looking at her as a grown man who actually knows what he likes in a woman, Amy Jo Johnson is totally not my type as far as just like looking at her thinking, yeah, like she's my kind of woman.
Well, it's also 1994, you know?
Exactly. But I still love her because in my mind, she's Kimberly. So
that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
But we had just said something about how we're doing it because we don't want to let those people down who have supported us. But I said to someone the other day, I'm doing this for two types of people: the people who said that I could, and the people who said that I couldn't, to prove the ones that said that I could right, and to prove the ones that I couldn't wrong. So I'm doing it for everybody when you really think about it. So
yeah. Well, you know, you got a supporter in me, brother. You know that.
That's
yeah,
cool.
man. A random rendezvous in Dallas, Texas was going to turn into such a blossoming friendship.
I know, right? You know, so I was telling Daryl earlier, you know, Nick and I met at a bar. It was Kevin Nash's Shenanigans in Dallas at WrestleMania 32. It was my first WrestleMania. And I walk in and, like, you know, Mean Gene is there. He's got chicks on him. Like, badass Billy Gunn is hanging out. Al Snow is over there chilling. Billy Gunn, by the way, Daryl, is like just jacked, and he's like almost 60, but he's like what, 6'5"?
More
is he?
Men in this world should aspire to be Billy Gunn.
Like, you can't tell. Like, he's one of those dudes that's like low key a brick wall,
Right.
and like Daryl, you know, is one of those brick wall gentlemen. He's no small guy.
But you said that perfectly. He's a brick wall gentleman.
Yeah,
like, he's not going to find a nicer guy than Billy, but he is such an intimidating And if you've ever worked with him, when he gets like a hot tag, when he's doing a tag match, you see your life flash before your eyes when he gets in there to start lighting you up. Because he is just so intense. It's ridiculous. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, he's a monster. But I'm hanging out at this bar, Daryl, and it's like, you know, ECW legend Sabu, and you know ECW was like super hardcore professional wrestling, and growing up in the Philadelphia area, that was actually one of the first pro wrestling moments I had, since we were talking about that. I remember picking up my brother at his friend's house, and it was the episode of Raw where DX dressed up as the Nation of Domination, which is completely inappropriate now. Yeah. But at the time, and there was like just all this chaos, and I remember being like, I don't know what is going on here, but this is sick, you know? And that was like it for me, you know, I was hooked. So it's interesting to see how far it's come, you know, professional wrestling, but just culture and entertainment. Anyway, so Sabu's sitting there, Carlito, all these dudes, and I bump into Nick Cutler. Nick at first thought, because I was with my friend who's a big athlete himself, that we were pro wrestlers. And I remember you saying to me, if somebody asks you if you're a worker here, just say that you are. And I was like, yeah, that'll get me pretty far with the with the drinks and stuff. So WrestleMania was a great time.
I didn't pay for any drinks that night. And I went there fully prepared to, but I got lucky because there were people either thought that I was, because at the time I had blonde highlights in my hair, so I had a few people buy me drinks thinking that I was Scotty Too Hottie. And I had this one guy. This guy had to have been like far gone because I don't remember this particular person ever having blonde highlights. But anyway, he came over and he asked me if he could buy me a drink. And I was like, yeah, man, sure. And so you'd go up to the bar. He's like, well, what are you drinking? And I was just like, just Miller Lite. He's like, oh, I'd like to buy you a shot. I'm like, I'm not really a big shot person. He's like, oh, come on, man. You know, you can't say no to a gift. That's rude. And I'm like, okay, do like a Jaeger bomb. And he's like, okay. So we're standing there just waiting for the drinks. And he just looks at me and he goes, you know, I really loved your stuff during the Attitude Era. I kind of pause.
It's like, who do you think I am?
I kind of pause and I'm like, don't blow this now because you don't have your drinks yet. So I just look over at him and I'm just like, well, which stuff in particular? He's like, oh, all that stuff with Nydia and the trailer park and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, this guy thinks I'm Jamie Noble.
Yeah. Well, I could see that. Okay.
Well, no, see, I can see that when I don't have highlights in my hair.
Right, like right now, for sure. Yeah.
Like right now, if I had a beard, I could be a spitting in. I told one of my buddies, I'm like, when him and Joey Mercury were doing J&J Security, I'm going to show up to Raw in a black suit and a yellow tie, and guaranteed I'm going to be able to get in and act like Jamie Noble. But I was just like, okay, he thinks I'm Jamie Noble. So he bought me drinks a ton that night, and just it was a good night. So
yeah, it was awesome. And I could say from the guys in Extractus, we were it was awesome to be a part of your art too and your creativity. So that's really cool.
Kevin has that every year, and I've been meaning every year. I'm going to go wherever Mania is this weekend. And even if just to go to the party, because I'm really good friends with Dave Hero, and Dave Hero actually is the one that helps Kevin set all this stuff up. So I actually was there that night as a guest of Dave's, me and my buddy both. So we got there, and because I think we were in the same Uber as Al and his wife, because they're a couple of friends of ours too. And we had gotten there and walked in, and I was just like, this is amazing, because you've got fans just interacting with the wrestlers, and you've got wrestlers who I don't get to see all the time, because you develop a bond with these people even after meeting them once. And then it's like you're with them for 6 or 7 hours at a show, and you're hanging out and you're laughing and you're having a good time, and then you don't see them for 6 months. So when you run into these people, the time goes by really, really fast. And so it's just like anytime I have an opportunity to get around a bunch of those guys, I try to. But it's like, man, I think WrestleMania was in New Orleans the next year, or Orlando, or one of the two. And
it was Orlando and then New Orleans. I was at New Orleans. New Orleans was great.
So I wasn't going to – I had no intentions of going to the one in Orlando, but I was going to go to the one in New Orleans, and then it just didn't happen. And I was going to go to the one this year, and I ended up buying tickets for my selfish little kid to go to Medieval Times instead. So
Father of the Year, though.
Exactly, Father of the Year. So maybe next year, but who knows? So I obviously want to be there working, but
of course
we'll see where that goes.
So as I was saying before, Daryl, former NFL player, we were discussing physical preparation. So if you want to take it away there, Daryl.
Yeah. So you know what, for me, and I gotta kind of just talk about your match with Jack Swagger, and I gotta talk about you in the middle of the ring, slapping your chest, Dark Horse Nation. Fans all over the place, and just chiming in with Jack Swagger as he's talking about We the People, and you guys just mixing it up.
So it's just talk about how it was, or
well, not necessarily how it was, but just the match itself, how the physicality of it, and then if we're talking along the lines of physical preparation. You and Justin was alluding to this earlier, so I might be digressing a little bit, but just how you can go from driving 8 hours, getting out to do a 30-minute match, rip it up, and then get back and then, wash, rinse, repeat. Like that's crazy. Like, how do you get your body prepared for stuff like that?
Massive amounts of caffeine. And
I knew there was something.
Yeah, well, it's and that's how it is too. It's like I'm sitting in a car for 2 hours, I'm cramped, and then I get out of the car, and then I'm wrestling, and I got to get loose, and then I get loose, and I get wound up, and then I'm sitting back in the car, and my adrenaline's rushing. And depending on where I'm at, sometimes I'll get home before it wears down, and it's like, oh man, what do I do now? It's definitely a mental mind fuck a lot of times, but that's why it's not for everybody. That's why the amount of talent that makes it to that next tier is far and few between. And then the level of talent that makes it to the tier after the next tier is far and few between. And then the ones that make it to the tippy top are even fewer, because it takes a special type of person to deal with the mental and physical toll that any sort of sport takes on your body, but especially like professional wrestling, where you're willingly just letting yourself get the snot beat out of you by a beast like Jack Swagger, because he is deceptively strong. Yeah. And probably before he got fired, undercover, probably one of the baddest guys on the roster. I mean, there's a reason why he's doing MMA now, because it's probably a better fit for him than pro wrestling, because he's going to be unstoppable. So,
but what's your like training regimen like? Because I mean, I'm looking at these screens from Full Spectrum Fitness. You have 300 level abs. I don't have one ab. I wish I did, but I don't. And I would love to I'd be able to wash my clothes off of abs like that. You know, it's just that'd be kind of cool. I'm just saying.
The abs are rather new to me. My body has gone through a lot of changes in the 11 years that I've been a pro wrestler. I started at a time where there were still a lot of, I guess we'll call them meatheads. Guys like Triple H and Batista and Goldberg, all these really big muscle men. But at the same point in time, there were guys showing up like Dolph Ziggler and Johnny Nitro, and guys that weren't really huge, muscular, but were ridiculously lean to the point where they still looked like athletes. And it was always really easy for me to put on muscle mass. And so in my mind, I'm like, well, abs are overrated. And I don't need to have abs to look like I can beat the shit out of somebody. And quite frankly, I don't think this era of someone just being ridiculously lean, being champion, is ever going to be a thing. Fast forward. Now you got guys like Finn Balor, who I swear doesn't eat carbs. And guys,
he hasn't had a carb ever. I don't even think he knows what a sandwich is.
I think of that scene from Step Brothers where that guy's like, I haven't had a carb since 2004. Okay.
Yeah.
And you got Tony Nese. I told Tony, I was just like, dude, it's not the first 6 abs you have that I have a problem with. It's the 7th and 8th one that really pisses me off.
I'll tell you what, just to interject, and then we'll get back to that. One of the best matches I've ever seen live, was Tony Nese and Leo Rush at House of Hardcore. And it was Tony Nese's last indie match. It was amazing. Tony
Nese is legit one of the nicest guys I've ever had the pleasure of meeting in the wrestling business. And I don't get happy for other people. I'm kind of a douche that way. I try to, give them the little Happy Gilmore clap and say, all right, good for them, but I'm more concerned with my own success. There are very few people whose success I get happy for, but I'm happy for Tony Nese. Leo Rush, I'll keep my opinion for him to myself, because my mom always told me if you can't say something nice about somebody, don't say anything at all.
Always a good attitude.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll say this, Leo Rush is amazing when it comes to what he can do. His personality just leaves a little bit to be desired. But rewinding, I'm saying to myself in 2008, 2009, this age of just guys being lean and rock hard is never going to take over. So, and I just like being big. If I did what I wanted to do, I would be the biggest I've ever been in my wrestling career. Bear in mind, I'm 5'9", 5'10" on a good day, 5'10" and a half with my boots on. But the heaviest I've ever been was 230 pounds. And I had no abs, but my chest was huge. My arms were huge. My back was huge. Endurance wasn't so great, but I liked the way that I looked. Now, throughout the years, with having conversations with WWE, hey, you need to lose weight. Hey, you need to gain weight. Hey, you need to lose weight. Hey, you need to gain weight. And doing what I'm told, and then not getting any sort of opportunity for it. This most recent time when I was at TV tapings in September, I was 220 pounds at the tapings. And I had a tryout match before SmackDown, before the doors open, just with the other extras doing whatever. And they needed somebody to wrestle Noam Dar for 205 Live. And in my mind, I'm like, even if I was 205, I wouldn't be the one wrestling Noam Dar, because even if I was 205, I would still dwarf over him and make him look.
He's a small guy, right?
If he's 170 pounds, I'll freaking eat this empty bottle of freaking Powerade Zero. But and he has to be like 5'5". Nice guy, but I digress. Anyway, you can kind of tell when you've been an extra as many times as I have, when the agents are kind of fed up with watching the matches, because you can imagine they see a lot of bad shit.
Now tell us what an agent is in pro wrestling.
Okay, so when you think of an agent, you think of the people that help the wrestlers put the matches together. On the independents, you show up and a promoter will say, hey, this is what's going on. You're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. And then the wrestlers kind of just have free reign. We kind of just do whatever we want, unless the promoter specifically tells us not to do something or whatever the case may be. When you look at WWE, you show up, you get told what you're doing, but then you have an agent assigned to you that actually helps you with putting together your segment. So Arn Anderson, agent, producer, there's different terms that you can use. Arn Anderson was a producer. Fit Finlay, Adam Pearce. Lita was an agent for the longest time for the Divas. But one of the agents that always watches the tryout matches is Scott Armstrong. So he is watching the matches, and match after match is getting over, and he's just like, next. Because rightfully so, a lot of these guys that are there for the first time, or even if they're not there for the first time and they just don't have a freaking clue, they have it in their mind that, oh, they want to see all these cool moves, and they want to see this, and they want to see this, and they want to see this. No, they don't. They want to see that you can do the basics and that you can do them properly, and that if they need you to work on TV with somebody, that you can make their talent look good. That's what they want to see. Okay? You'll have time to show them that other stuff later if they're actually interested in you. So Dean Malenko, who was another one of the agents, was actually going to be the one that was handling the 205 Live match. And I knew I had overheard that they wanted somebody for that night, and they were looking at this other guy who was like, he was definitely under 200 pounds, but he was like 6'1" or 6'2". So again, dwarfing over Noam Dar. The guy that I was going to be wrestling, his name slips my mind, but he was a really, really nice guy. He was from Florida, just happened to be in the area, so he got onto the Chicago loop. But he wrestled the night before against the Authors of Pain. Because originally, they're like, hey, why don't we use this guy? He was on Raw last night. We don't want to use him 2 nights in a row. Okay. So the big guy that's like 6'1", 6'2", gets up there, does his tryout match, and I see Dean Malenko walk over to him. He's like, hey, we need you on the segment tonight for 205. About, 5 minutes. Make Noam look good.
Oh, man.
Kid says, okay. He had told me prior that this was his first time ever being an extra. So you imagine you show up for the first time ever being an extra for WWE, and then the first time that you're there, you're told that you're going to be wrestling on 205 Live. So you just see this guy's face light up. He's giddy like a little freaking school kid. And me and my opponent get in the ring. We have our match. And number one, after the match, Scott, there is no next. It's Scott calling me, and I look over at him, and he just like leans over and tells me thank you, because I gave him what they actually want. Nice. And then I felt so bad. Malenko walks past us, walks up to the kid that's about 6'1", 6'2". Hey, change your plans. We don't need you. That's it. The kid just kind of hangs his head down, walks over to us, tells me I'm a little bit big to be on 205, so they're going to use my opponent. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, you should give me half of your paycheck because I just got you a spot on 205 Live. And in my mind, I'm like, all right, well, they can't use me because I'm over 205. So if I'm already over 205 and I know I'm not being used on TV, let me just go touch that Oreo cheesecake that I saw sitting in catering before the matches. So I go to the back. I'm at catering. I'm getting ready to indulge in this delicious-looking cheesecake. And I turn around, and there's Scott Armstrong standing there, and he's just like, "Hey, you're the guy with the chest hair." I was like, yeah, that was me. And he's just like, "Dude," and he grabs the cheesecake out of my hand and he sets it down on the table, and he's like, "Jim, Jim, Jim." And he's like, "I'm not saying that you're in bad shape. You're not. You're bigger than all of the guys here. But there's nothing that we can do with you at 5'10", 220 pounds. But if you were 5'10", 205, then we could do business."
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay. And I'm not going to name drop people, but another very influential worker who was watching the matches, who's been with WWE for, I'm wanting to say 11 years now, called me aside in the hallway. And he's just like, "Hey, man," he's like, "the agents were creaming themselves over your match. Like, they wanted you on TV tonight." And I was just like, "Yeah, he just told me that I need to drop weight to 205. And he's just like, "How much do you weigh right now?" I was like, 220. He's like, "Dude," he's like, "that's just fucking cutting out bread and all that shit that you don't need. I guarantee you, if you get to 205, they'll sign you."
Okay. Sweet.
So since that was in September, so since then I've lost 23 pounds. I'm 97 pounds right now.
Nice.
On the 205, and I'm like, I'm still like 17 or 18% body fat, so I'll just kind of keep going. And I'm down to 197 pounds. I don't know if I would necessarily say I look the best that I've ever looked, but I'm definitely close to that. And whether I do or whether I don't get to try it with WWE is really beside the point in my mind, because I've been told things by them before. And, people might listen to this and they might say, "Oh, he's blowing smoke up our asses." I don't really need you to believe me. If you want to believe me, then you believe me. If you won't, then you won't. I really don't care. The people who are really close with me have seen the emails. The people who are really close with me know that I've got no reason to lie about it. Whether I do or whether I don't get a tryout is irrelevant. I've been told that I would before. I've been told a couple of times since 2017. The problem is that shit with that company changes like that. Snap of the fingers.
It's a big ship to turn.
Exactly what they're looking for at the exact point in time that performance center tryout is coming around, so you can find your name on that list of people that they fly down there for 3 days. And I am confident enough in myself that if I go to Orlando for one of their 3-day tryouts, I will walk away with the job, come hell or high water. It's getting down there. It's actually getting the opportunity to go down there. And I don't want to give them a reason to not do it. So, I remember texting my wife that day from the locker room and saying, "Hey, they pretty much told me that if I drop to 205 pounds, that I'll have a job, or at the very least, an opportunity to get a job." And she's just like, "Well, they've told you that before." I was like, "Yeah, but I can look at this in two ways. I can say, fuck them. They've said this to me before and they didn't follow through on their end, so I'm just going to continue to do what I want to do. And then I know I'm not going to get an opportunity. Or I can lose the weight. I can send them pictures. I can send them a promo, and I can say, hey, here you go. I did what you guys told me to do. If they give it to me, great. If they don't, I know in my mind that I did everything that they told me to do. And I have done everything that they told me to do. At the very beginning of this journey, when they actually first started looking at me as a talent, it was get more exposure. So I started flying myself all over the country. I flew myself to California to wrestle for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I flew myself to Jersey to wrestle for Danny Cage and develop a relationship with him at Monster Factory. I flew myself to Florida to work for Full Impact Pro. Me and my tag team partner drove 15 hours to Dallas to do that Evolve camp, which is why
wow.
There.
15 hours.
15 hours, man.
That weekend with you. So I've literally done everything that they have asked me to do. But now I'm at a point where there are certain things that I am willing to do, and there's certain things that I'm not willing to do. If you want to tell me to lose weight, I'll lose weight. If you want to tell me to work for somebody, if that person brings me in for work, then I will go to that person and work. What I will not do is what I look at as pretty much selling my soul. And what I mean is there are a lot of guys on the independent circuit, and more power to them for doing this, but they're driving 12, 13, 14 hours with a carload of guys for little to no money for a quote unquote opportunity to work for a next level promotion, a Ring of Honor, an Evolve, an MLW, whatever the case may be. I am a dad. I've got 3 kids. I've got a wife. I've got a house payment. I'm no longer in a position where I am willing to do something for nothing.
Gotcha.
I've done that. I did that. I've been doing this for 11 years.
Yeah, you paid your dues. It's time for you to be able to make it.
I literally sank thousands of dollars into Evolve. I've sank thousands of dollars into Ring of Honor. Neither one of them gave me an opportunity. That's why, as weird as I think he is, I will always have love for Tommy Dreamer, because Tommy Dreamer gave me an opportunity multiple times to perform on his promotion, which is something that Ring of Honor never did. I went to multiple Ring of Honor shows on my own dime and set up the ring and tore down the ring and was never given so much as a dark. I sold tickets at the show because I showed up to try to get onto the show, even work a dark, and they wouldn't give me an opportunity to do that, but then they asked me to sell tickets, which is fine. I and you know
that's where the entertainment end of the business comes into it, because that's a lot of stuff that, as a musician, that I've had to deal with too. It's that kind of promoter entertainer relationship.
And it's funny because, like I said, I went and I did it, and you know what I did? I sold the rest of their front row tickets. They told me, hey, we still have some front row tickets. Like, if you could get those out. I sold all their front row tickets. I sold all their second row tickets. The only thing that they had left at the end of the night was general admission. And I would have sold those too if they had more people come through the door. So I took what they gave me and I knocked it out of the park. And one of the guys that helps run it, God bless him, he's the one that brought me into Full Impact. He actually told Gabe that night, he's just like, hey, Cutler was just Mac Daddying at the door and he got all of the front row and second row tickets out. And Gabe kind of looked at me impressed. He's like, hey, awesome. Are you coming to the show in Chicago tomorrow night? I was booked, so I said what any other self-respecting worker would say. And I was just like, I don't know, Gabe, is there an opportunity tomorrow night in Chicago to work in the ring, not the door? Because I'm working in Warsaw, Indiana for $100 plus whatever I sell in merchandise. So are you going to put me in the ring? Put me in the ring and give me $20. Put me in the ring and don't give me anything. But tell me that you're going to put me in the ring. But if I don't at least have a guarantee that I'm going to step into that ring and be able to perform and at least have something out of it, then I'm past that point where I'm willing to put myself into those situations.
That makes sense.
And I'm not going to rip on anybody that is willing to do that. Good for you. One of the things that you notice about a lot of those guys that do all these cross-country ventures is not a whole lot of them are in shape. Do you want to know why? Because they put all of their money into traveling across the country. So they don't have money to eat right. They don't have money for gym memberships. I'm sure a lot of them probably still live at home. Or if they don't live at home, they live in a house with 6 or 7 other people, so the rent is dirt cheap. I don't have that luxury because I swore to myself when I started wrestling, I wasn't going to put the rest of my life on hold. Right. I wasn't going to be one of those guys that says, hey, you know what? I'm not going to get married until I'm signed, and then I'm not going to have kids until I'm done wrestling, and then I'm not going to do this until this. Like, no, I met my wife. I fell in love with her. I wanted to marry her. We wanted a daughter. I wasn't going to tell her, nope, sorry, I'm not going to have kids with you until I'm done wrestling. How fucking selfish is that? And there are people that do that, and more power to them. But that's not me. I was never going to make my family go without. My wife is a saint, and she has seen me sink thousands of dollars into something that doesn't really give her a whole lot. because she knows how much it means to me. And she knows that I have what it takes to make this pay off. It's just a question of whether I'll get that opportunity or not. So
it sounds like something that a lot of people can relate to, whether they're in sports or chasing the corporate dream. So what is ultimately your goal with professional wrestling?
WWE. That's it. I want to work full time for that company. It was actually kind of funny. At the Heroes and Legends, it's a huge convention that runs twice a year in Fort Wayne, here in Indiana. And at the last Heroes and Legends show in October, Terry Taylor was there, and he's the finishing coach at NXT. So the very last step that you go through in NXT before going up to Raw or SmackDown is through Coach Taylor's course. And, he watched my match that night. He was a big fan of mine, and I kind of told him what I had been told as far as losing weight and this and this and that and that. He's just like, well, you've got talent. You're good. I like you. You ever thought about being a referee? And I was like, $125,000 a year to not take any fucking bumps and travel the world? Where do I sign? And it's like, oh, be surprised how many guys, have an ego about it. I'm like, guys have an ego about getting paid $125,000 a year? Like, what? Because they can't put on spandex and fake fight? Like, I don't give a shit. If you're paying me and I'm traveling the world and I'm working for the company that I've wanted to work for since I was 9 years old, I don't care what I'm doing. Because I honestly feel like whatever it is that I'm doing, whether it's a wrestler, whether it's a referee, whether it's a manager, whether it's a play-by-play color commentator, I will be the absolute best at whatever it is that I do. Because that's just the mindset that I have with whatever it is that I am focusing on. And he's just like, you're 30 right now. You're getting ready to turn 31. I'm not saying that you're too old. But I am saying that even if you got signed now, the window of opportunity to have a really long career is kind of short. Charles Robinson's 57 years old, and he's still on the road every week. So he's like, if you don't get signed by the time you're 35, you could try to be a referee, get hired, and then still have a 20-year career and still make a lot of money, especially if you get on their ring crew, because their ring crew get a nightly bonus and all of their expenses are paid. So he's like, you wouldn't care about doing that? And I'm like, no. And he's just like, all right, well, why don't you do what they told you to do? Drop all that weight, keep trying to get signed as a worker. And if you don't get signed in the next couple of years, drop a little bit more weight and try to be a referee. Because
that's great. That's a great way. And I think that's a great, awesome perspective to have. And I think, Daryl, you can elaborate on that before we wrap up here, because Daryl made a transition.
Well, I think the biggest thing that I hear, Nick, you saying is the opportunity. You know what I mean? And that resonates so much with me because, I was an undrafted free agent. I tore my ACL the week before the 2003 draft. Yeah. So I had my agent was Ken Kramer and Tom Cotton from IMG, which is now CAA. And I literally was in my basement, like with my leg up, had just had ACL reconstructive surgery. I watched every pick in the draft go by. And I went from like a second round, third round potential draft pick to nothing. And if it wasn't for actually, and this is crazy, Rex Hogan, who's the director of player personnel for the Indianapolis Colts, who was then like a bottom basement scout for the Chicago Bears, who called me like the week after the draft and said, hey, listen, DC, did you get picked up? And I was like, no, dude, I tore my ACL at my pro day workout. And he was like, I'll give you a call right back. And when he called me right back, he had then Lovie Smith coming in and Jerry Angelo on the line. And they were like, listen, you're a good guy. We're going to rehab you on our own dime and give you an opportunity. And that's all I needed. Like literally, it's all about opportunity and the grind and the sacrifice and the ebbs and flows of, whatever it is that gets you to being on the field. Like, Nick, you're like, yo, I don't give a shit whether I'm a referee or whether I, am 11 years in and I get that career that I want, as long as I get to WWE. And that totally resonates with me. So awesome. And that transition from sports, and another thing that resonates with me too, Nick, is you like saying, hey, being a nice guy, doing everything the right way, them giving you the advice, say, listen, cut the body weight and then give it a try. And then there's still another opportunity for you be a referee. Hey, I've gone through that too. Hey, we need a nose tackle. Can you be 315 pounds? I'm 281. Well, let me train up. Hey, we need a 3 technique for
God, I can't imagine that. That's
can you be 292 and jet a B gap? Sure, let me train down. Hey, I need you to be 350 in Dallas. You know what I mean? Just as an opportunity. Like I bounced from team to team, but my thing was, I want to keep my fucking hand in the ground and rush as long as I possibly can, as long as I get to feel that, as long as I can get to be in a locker room, as long as I can get to strap a helmet on and fucking just nut up. I've been doing it since I was a kid. That's my passion. And now the transition is I'm a producer at NFL Films, man. If somebody told me like, hey, you know what? 15, 16 years ago, you're going to end up being an Emmy Award-winning producer for NFL Films after all the shit you went through, I'd have been like, no. But it still keeps me around the game, which I'm passionate about, and which is still giving me opportunities.
Hell yeah.
I got much respect to you, Nick, man. Much fucking respect for real, bro.
And that